integers related to adding and subtracting rational numbers? Think about this question during the lesson. Lava flows from an active volcano's magma reservoir, which is 2 3/4 miles below sea level, through something called a magma conduit, and the lava flows a total distance of 5 1/4 miles. How far is the summit of the volcano from sea level? Adding the starting elevation and the change in elevation gives you the final elevation of the summit. You can use the rules for adding integers to add all other rational numbers. Now we can use a number line to represent the distances. On this number line, 0 represents sea level. The magma reservoir is 2 3/4 miles below ground, or -2 3/4, which falls on the number line here. This part of the number line represents the distance from the magma reservoir to sea level, and this section represents the distance from sea level to the summit. The total distance from the magma reservoir to the summit is 5 1/4 miles. So, how far is the summit of the volcano from sea level? You can use the same rules for adding integers to add any two rational numbers. Begin by writing an expression to represent the distance, -2 3/4 plus 5 1/4. The absolute value of -2 3/4 is equal to 2 3/4, and the absolute value of 5 1/4 is equal to 5 1/4. When the signs are different, find the difference. 5 1/4 minus 2 3/4 equals 2 1/2. Use the sign of the addend with the greater absolute value. -2 3/4 plus 5 1/4 equals 2 1/2. How can you use properties of numbers to show why the two expressions are equivalent? The order of the addends is switched using the commutative property. Then you can rewrite addition of a negative number as subtraction of its opposite. The summit of the volcano is 2.5 miles above sea level. Now, you can use what you know about adding and subtracting integers to do the same for rational numbers.
A dolphin is at the surface of the water and then descends to a depth of 4 1/2 feet. Then the dolphin swims down another 2 3/4 feet. What is the location of the dolphin relative to the surface of the water?
So it says a dolphin descends to a depth of 4.5 feet deep. So descends means to go down, and so does depth. Depth is how deep something goes. And it says the dolphin swims down another 2 3/4 feet. So we're going to take both of those numbers, and if you look at the number line, they're waiting for an answer to go here. So let's solve for that. So we already discussed descends means to go down. So that's why they have this -4.5. Now we know the dolphin swims down further, 2 3/4 feet. So we're going to put 2 3/4 feet here. And then, because it's going down, we know that's going to be a -2 3/4 feet. And so now we need to solve. So when you have fractions, we know we need to have the same denominator. So we have 1/2 and 3/4. The common denominator they can have is 2/4, and so the 4 is the common denominator. So we're adding these two negative fractions together. So -2 plus -5, I'm sorry, -3, I just told you the answer, is -5. And then we have it over 4. And then you have your whole numbers, -4 and -2. That actually is equal to -6. But we have now -6 and 5/4. However, 5/4 is an improper fraction, so that 5/4 needs to become a mixed number. So the way we do that is we take 4, which is our denominator, and divide it into our numerator. 4 can go into 5 once, and that equals 1. So now that 5 and 5/4 is equal to 1. This becomes our new whole number. And then the remainder becomes our new numerator. And then 4 is still the denominator. So now we have 1 and 1/4. So we're going to, and it's negative. So we're going to add that -1 to that -6, which gives us -7. And our fraction is 1/4. So the location of the dolphin relative to the surface of the water is -7 and 1/4. So that's how deep the dolphin has gone into the water.
The force of gravity added to the force of thrust is the combined force at work on a model rocket. What is the combined force in newtons on the rocket?
Use the commutative property and additive inverses as a strategy to add. So they're showing us here -49 newtons plus 1.5, and then you're adding, and they're showing that that -49 hundredths turns that addition into subtraction, and so you have -1.5 minus 0 and 49 hundredths, and they changed the mixed number 1.5 to a decimal because half is like 50 cents of a dollar, right? So we have 1 and 5/10, and then subtract that from the 49 hundredths, and you get 1 and 1/100 newtons. So the combined force of these two is that 1 and 1/100 newtons.
Find the sum or difference of the rational numbers.
So let's look at A, B, and C. There's 3 similar problems, but have slight differences. So we're going to do the first one together. So let's look at -2 and 5/10 plus -5 and 6/10. So first of all, it is my opinion that creating decimals instead of using fractions is a bit easier, and you can use a calculator to help. So -5, if you look at 6/10, if you say it is exactly as you would write it. So -5 and 6/10 will look like this. And that's because 6 is in the 10ths place. So just that easy, we have made that mixed number into a decimal. And then we have our -2 and 5/10 that we're adding to it. So now you have your -2 and 5/10 and -5 and 6/10. And like I said, with them being decimals, you can use a calculator. So I'm going to type in the calculator, 2 and 5/10 plus 5 and 6/10. And remember, they're both negative, so that's why we're able to add them together. And that will equal -8 and 1/10. So our answer for A would be negative 8 1/10. And if you were to write it as a fraction or mixed number, this would be negative 8 1/10. Again, very simple. All right, now let's look at B. That is negative 4 4/10 minus negative 1 1/2. So now we have, again, another mixed number, and negative 1 1/2, and we know half is like 50 cents of a dollar, so we have negative 1 5/10, which is like 50 cents, right? So we're going to subtract this from that negative 4 4/10 that we have. Now, because it's negative minus negative and a minus, we have to change that to a plus, because that both cancel each other out, and now that number is a positive. So now we're adding negative 4 4/10 and 1 5/10. Again, you may use your calculator, and you have 4 4/10, negative 4 4/10 plus 1 5/10, and that gives you negative 2 9/10. Again, as a mixed number, you would simply write negative 2 9/10, and there you have a mixed number. All right, let's do the last one, C. That is 135 4/10 plus 78 1/2. So we're going to make 78 1/2 a decimal, and there it is, and it's positive, and we have negative 135 4/10. So we're going to put that in our calculator. That's negative 135 4/10 plus 78 5/10, and you see now that negative number is bigger than my positive, so my answer is also negative, so it's negative 56 9/10. And if you want to write it as a fraction or a mixed number, it would be negative 56 9/10.
She looks over the edge of her boat and sees fish 4/10 of a meter below the surface of the water. If Ruby holds a 1 meter long net at 5/10 of a meter above sea level, can she reach the fish? To find the distance between any 2 points on a number line, find the absolute value of their difference. One way to express the difference is the absolute value of 5/10 minus negative 4/10. Subtracting a negative number is the same as adding its opposite. So the expression is equivalent to the absolute value of 5/10 plus 4/10, which is equivalent to the absolute value of 9/10, or 9/10. Another way to express the difference is the absolute value of negative 4/10 minus 5/10. Subtracting a positive number is equivalent to adding its opposite. The expression is equivalent to the absolute value of negative 9/10, which is 9/10. The fish are 9/10 meter below where Ruby holds the net, so Ruby can reach the fish with a 1 meter long net. Two divers are swimming at different depths below sea level. One diver is at negative 25 5/10 feet. The other diver is at negative 40 75/100 feet. How much farther below sea level is the diver who is farthest below sea level?
Okay, we have one diver at negative 25 5/10 feet. The other diver is negative 40 75/100 feet. How much farther below is the diver who is the farthest below sea level? So how much farther is the same as saying like how much deeper, right? So we have these two we're comparing, so we need to subtract to compare them. So we have negative 4 75/100 minus negative 25 5/10. So what's important about this is that how much further below sea level is not necessarily going to give us a negative or positive number. So we only want to know the depth. We don't want to know whether it's not the depth. We want to know how much farther. So it's not going to be a negative or positive per se. So I'm going to use absolute value bars. And those absolute value bars keeps our answer as just the distance between one diver and the other diver. So when we subtract the two, we're only subtracting the numbers themselves. So that means this will be 40 and 75/100ths minus 25 and 5/10ths. So we're just dealing with the numbers themselves. So you can put this in your calculator. You have 40 and 75/100ths minus 25 and 5/10ths, and you should get 15 and 25/100ths. And that's going to be in feet. So how much further did the other diver go? And that would be 15 and 25/100ths feet.